Hi and welcome to this DCP web tutorial. In today's tutorial I'll be giving you a beginner's guide to editing video content using DaVinci Resolve 16. So let's quickly open up the web browser and we're going to go to this website. So in this directory on my desktop I've got these various video clips and I'm going to be using these to demonstrate how to edit the content using DaVinci Resolve 16. So as an example we're going to go to this link here. So let me just copy this link and we'll go to this website, and all you need to do is click the free download button and make sure you download all your video clips at 1920 by 1080. So you can search on Pixabay for different content. You don't have to do the same content I'm using, but I'll put links in the YouTube description for all the video content that I'm going to be using today. You can go ahead and search for cars and you can do one on cars or famous places or whatever you want. And Pixabay's got loads of free video content that you can use to do some video editing. So you choose, or you can use your own content as well. You don't have to use content downloaded. You may have some video content of an event that you're doing or your birthday party or whatever it might be. You can use that content as well as long as you've got it stored on your computer. So let's close this. We'll close this folder for the moment and we'll go ahead and launch DaVinci Resolve 16. So I'm using the beta version at the moment. I downloaded this from the website. If you've not installed DaVinci Resolve 16 yet, I'll put a link in the YouTube description to all of the videos that we're going to use today, but also to the installation for DaVinci Resolve 16 as well. So you can download this software and use it just as I am. So the first thing I'll do is click on Untitled Project here. Well, in fact, we can just click on New Project. We'll click on New Project and we need to give it a name. I'm going to call it let's see, it's all about animals, this particular video, so I'm going to call it Animal Planet, and I made a version 1 before that I was just testing, so I'm going to call it V2 version 2 and click create. So this is what DaVinci Resolve loads up first, and it normally takes you to the edit tab here, and it looks quite complex and quite daunting, this software, but let's do a basic tutorial so you get up to speed and get some basic understanding. So let's go to the media section here. So you've got these little tabs down the bottom and they're all for different parts of the workflow. So some are to do with video editing, some are to do with effects, some's to do with color grading and audio editing, and then finally delivering your project. Let's click on media first, down here media, and what we want to do is get our content into DaVinci Resolve. So there's a few different ways to do that. You can browse down here and you can, search for your content. But what I like to do is just open up the folder on my desktop and I'll select all of the video content. So let's just select that. So I've got all of the video content here, and I've also actually got one audio clip as well. So let me quickly show you how I got that audio clip, just so that we have everything out of the way in terms of downloading. So all I'll do is go to this website here. It's youtube.com/audio-library/music, and you need to have a YouTube account so you can download the content. And I downloaded a particular audio clip already. It's called Arms of Heaven. So if I search for that here, click search, it will find that one audio clip. You can just click download here and download the audio clip as well, but you must make sure you've got a YouTube account to access this. So that's all of our downloading done, and we'll drag and drop that all into here. So I've selected everything here and just drag and drop it into here. So you can see all of the different clips are now displayed here down the side, and if I were to click on them, it will show in the player here the different types of video clips that we have. So we've got ones of dogs and all these different animals, all this good stuff, right? So what I'll do is click on the bottom one, hold down the shift key and click on the very top one. So now they're all selected. I'm going to drag them into the bottom here. It's going to say, would you like to change the timeline, frame rate and the video format to match? And I'm going to say, yeah, change it, right? So now the video clips and the timeline will be at the same frame rate. That's what we want. So that's the first part done. We've got content into DaVinci Resolve. That's job 1 done. And you can come back here and drag more content in here. You can drag and drop it down to here. You can play around with the content and move it around as you need. Just make sure whatever you've got up here, you can search from this side over here and just drag them into the media pool down here, basically, right? Now we're going to go to cutting, cut down here, cutting, and this is kind of a new feature of DaVinci Resolve 16. This allows you to do some really quick fast editing. In the editor over here, it can be a little bit more tricky. Not necessarily tricky, but it takes a bit more time. Really, these two things kind of serve the same purpose, but with the editor, you can add more effects, and you can do transitions, and you can do other things in here that you can't really do on cutting or this cut section. So cutting is just about getting your content into DaVinci Resolve in the right order and cut at the right length, let's say. So I want to do some cutting in here, and what I want to do is have this as my intro, right? This first planet Earth. So I'm going to drag and drop that onto the timeline, and when I drag and drop it onto the timeline, you'll see two timelines in fact. There's one at the top here and there's one down the bottom here. Now this particular cursor, this red cursor, always stays in the middle of the screen. So as I move, if I move this this timeline, if I drag it to the left, you'll see the cursor always stays in the middle position, and the one across the top here, you can actually drag it all the way across. Now this blue line represents this particular piece of content that we're looking at here in the timeline. You can use this little option here. If you click on the little dot in the middle, it's like a little jog wheel. Normally you have like a physical jog wheel on your video editor. If you've got some money to spend, you'll buy a physical one, but here you can jog by frame, like really finite frames. And this first clip, I want it to be around, say, around 7 seconds long. So what I'm doing is I'm keeping my eye on the timeline here. It's at 0.527. I want this to be 0.700. So what I'll do is I'll use this little jog wheel and we'll scrub across, and you can quite easily and quite quickly get to 0700 right here. Now I want to edit it, so I want to keep the beginning part and get rid of everything afterwards. So all I'll do is right click up here on this little red you see when I move my mouse cursor over here, it's going to change the cursor right here. If I right click and then move up and click cut, that will cut the clip. So now I've got two pieces of this clip. I'm going to click on the right hand side and then hit the delete key. Now all I have is that first 7 seconds of this planet Earth, and then I can choose which other video clips I want to place in whatever particular order. Now over here you can click on these options here, so you can show it in list view. Sometimes I like looking at it in list view because it actually tells you how long each clip is in terms of its duration. In the thumbnail view you can't really see that information, so you don't know if this is 10 seconds long, 20, 30 seconds, you have no idea. But if you go into, or this view is even better actually, the middle one, you can see the actual content, but you can actually, it'll actually tell you it's 43 seconds long, this is 15 seconds long, 45 seconds and so forth. So let's just drag and drop them. It doesn't really matter too much which order we place them in. This is one of a squirrel, so I'm going to drag the squirrel down and I'm going to move across the timeline, and this clip is 43 seconds long. So I'm going to move it to around here, right here. Let's say about here. So on this part of the timeline, I want to get rid of this beginning part. So I'm going to right click up here on the timeline cursor and then click cut and select this left hand side and press the delete key. That will shift everything across. So now we can move back to the beginning of where this squirrel appears, and we can scrub across, and we're going to work, let's say we want this to display for 4 seconds. So 7 plus 4 is 11. So really I want to see 11 here, not 07, I want to see 11. So I'm going to move across the timeline till we get to around 11 right here. And then I'm going to right click and click cut again. And then I'm going to click on the right hand side and hit the delete key. Let's go to file, save, and we'll move to the next clip. This is audio, we'll deal with that later. And this one here is the, what is this, like a woodpecker sort of thing, right? Let's drag that onto the timeline. And you can clearly see at the beginning it's all black frames here. There's quite a lot of black frames. It's got a fade here. So we'll do our own fading. If we want to do fading, we'll do it ourselves. And we'll move, we can see that this is 15 seconds long. So let's cut it around here. So I'm going to cut it here. So I'm going to right click, cut, click on this left hand side. It will highlight red here and hit the delete key. And then let's see, let's move to the beginning of this clip, and we want it to be 4 seconds long. So 11 plus 4 is 15. So we'll scrub across until we see 15 here. We see 15 here. That's where I want to cut it. I'm going to right click, cut, and then select the end part and then delete that. And we'll move to the next clip of this line. We'll drag that in. We'll move across the timeline. this is 16 seconds long. So let's see. Now this particular clip has audio. So as I'm scrubbing through it, you'll see the waveform moving up and down here. And I'm going to show you how to remove audio, because we don't really want this audio, but we do that in the next step. So I'm going to cut it, let's say around here, right here. So let's right click, cut, get rid of this beginning part, and then we'll move back to the beginning of this clip, and we'll move across. And where was we? We was on 15, right? So 15 plus 4 seconds will be 19. Let's move to around frame 19, or on the timeline 19 seconds. Then we will right click, cut, and then delete the end part. We'll move to the next clip of this owl. We'll drag that into here, and then the owl, let's get it so it's around here. So we'll just right click, cut, get rid of the beginning part, and then let's see. So the owl will turn around. We're on 19, so we want to be on 23 seconds, right? 23 here, 23. So we'll right click, cut, and delete the end part. We'll move down one. We've got the dog here. Let's drag that in. And the dog clip, I think I'm going to actually make this a bit longer, right? So we're on 23. So I want to make this like 10 seconds long, let's say. The dog clip is 14 in total. So let's see. Let's make it a bit longer, this one. Where was we on our timeline? Let's just check. We're on 23, so let's make it around, let's make it 30. So actually let's make it 33 here. So that will be 10 seconds long, that particular clip. So then we just right click here, cut, and delete the end part. So this particular clip is a lot longer. And then we'll go to this underwater scene. Now sometimes in the clip, in the timeline here, sometimes you want to keep maybe a beginning part, you want to get rid of the middle part, and you want to keep a bit at the end, right? So you want to get rid of a chunk in the middle. So what we'll do on this one is we'll move across our timeline. So we're on 33 here on the timeline, 33. So we'll move across to, let's see, 33 plus, so 37, right? Let's move to 37. We'll right click and cut here. So we want to keep this beginning part, and let's just say we want to get rid of all of this end. Let's say we want to get rid of this chunk here in the middle, this part here. We'll cut again, and then we'll select the middle part only, and we'll delete that, and then it will keep the beginning part and the end part. So let's delete that. Now we've got two pieces here. We've got the beginning part and the end part, right? Now I don't actually want to do that, so but I was just showing you that you can cut a middle part out and retain the beginning part and the end part, and you can cut that into multiple parts, so you can be very finite in terms of your cutting, right? But we'll select this end part. I don't really want that, but I just wanted to show you can cut a clip into multiple parts. Sometimes you want to do that. Let's move down. We've got this is actually the clip we're working on right now. It's called timeline here, timeline 1. So we don't want to drag that in there, but we want to drag this one of this what is it, guano chameleon. So let's move across. We're on 37 plus 4 would be 41. So let's move to 41 right here, and we'll click on this clip. We'll right click, cut, delete the end part, and then finally at the very top we have the ending, which is this planet sort of fading out, right, like this, or fading in, you can say. Now what you can do, if you notice, as I've been dragging all these clips in, let's just save this work. As I've been dragging all these clips in, you've got these little sections at the top here. So this top timeline represents all of the content at the bottom here. So you can think of this as almost being zoomed in, and this top timeline is showing you the whole holistic view. It doesn't matter if you've got like an hour's worth of content, it's always going to show you all of your content across the top here. So you can use this timeline across here to scrub across the whole content all the way from beginning to end, right? And you can move across your clip and see what's going on. So I think the end part of this video clip, I'm going to leave it at full length. I won't be editing this part. You could cut it if I wanted to, but I think it looks good at the end here. So that's all of our cutting done. You can see it's very, very easy to take multiple video clips, combine them together, And you can see the transitions are a bit rubbish, right? They just jump from one scene to the next scene. So that's what we're going to deal with in the next particular part of this tutorial, is fixing the transitions and maybe adding a title and a few other things. So let's go to File, Save, and let's move on to Edit here. So a lot of the things that you did in the cutting, you can actually do in here. You can actually cut video clips in here as well. But I find it much easier now to cut them in the cut tool here. Much faster, more intuitive. There's less clutter here, right? In this interface is much cleaner. Let's go over to the Edit tab here. Let's explain what's going on in here. So across the top here, you've got the video, and down below, you've got the audio clips. So these audio clips, when I downloaded the video clips from the internet, it already had audio there. So some of them have audio, some of them don't. And I want to get rid of all of the audio. Now, if I just move this cursor across a little bit, in the bottom right left-hand corner here, you'll see a little sort of chain icon. That represents that these clips are linked together, the audio and the video. So I'm going to right-click and select Link Clip here to unlink them. Now they've been unlinked. So I can left-click outside and then left-click on the audio and then press Control and X. It's quite very important. Don't hit the delete key. If you hit the delete key, it's going to remove the video content above. So press Control Z if you've done that. What you want to do is click on the clip, the audio, and press Control X to cut it. Now the video will stay there, but the audio will be removed. And we're going to move across this timeline, and we've got other audio clips in here. Now, this one here, we'll right click, unlink it. We'll click outside, then click back on the audio only, and press Control X. And we'll do the same for this one here as well. These two here. Let's just move across here. So let's click on that one. Right click, unlink, click outside, click back on the audio, Control X. Right click on this one, link clips, click outside, click back on the audio and press Control X. Now we've got a timeline with no audio. Because we downloaded some music, remember this music? We want to use that in our particular video clip. Well, that's what I've chosen to do, let's say. Okay, so let's drag that audio in. Let's get the audio working. So I'm going to go back to the beginning of the timeline. Let's go to File, Save. I like to save things as we go along. Let's drag the audio clip into here, and we can click the play button, and you'll notice it's pretty silent at the beginning. So we want to cut this audio now inside of the editor here. So move our timeline, and if you look carefully, you can see the audio starts around here. And what we'll do is use the cut tool. So let's select the blade tool here, and we'll move down to the audio clip and click on the red line, this red timeline, and that will cut this audio into two sections. We'll click on the selection tool, select this part of the audio and press Control and X, or you can right click and cut here, and then we'll drag this audio to the beginning. Now the audio will play straight away, which is what we want. And let's move across the timeline. You can actually hold down your middle mouse button and move to the left here to move across to the right of the timeline, right? And we want to zoom out a little bit. So I'm going to hold down the Alt key. Hold down the Alt key and you can zoom in and out. You can now see the timeline a bit more holistic. You can see the audio finishes all the way off, right? The audio is very long compared to the video. So we're going to click here at the end of the video clip, and we will go to our cut tool. We'll click on the audio down here, and then we'll use the selection mode tool, and then we'll click on the right hand side here of the audio. You'll see it will highlight red, and hit the delete key or press Control X. Better to press Control X. Now I want the audio to fade out. So to make it fade out, I'm going to move my mouse cursor to the top right hand corner of the audio and drag to the left. And I want it to fade out from around here. So the audio is going to fade out gradually at the end. Let's go to File, Save. And right now, if I move the timeline cursor to, let's say, around this position and click play, you'll see the clips just jump between. There's no, it's just a straight jump cut. There's no real transition between them. So I want to add a transition. So I'm going to, let's hold down the Alt key and zoom back in again. And I'm going to middle mouse click. I'm going to move my cursor so it's right in the middle of these two clips here. And then I'm going to right click and say add 30 frame cross dissolve. And I'm going to do that on this one as well. right click, add 30 frames, right click here, add 30 frames, right click here, add 30 frames, and I'm going to keep doing that in between all of the. Now sometimes the video clip isn't cut quite right so that it can add the 30 frames correctly, so we'll click trim clip here, and that will trim the clip slightly but allow that transition to be added as well, or the dissolve transition, right? So we'll right click here, add 30, trim clip, and we'll just do that across all of these. So now we've got all our transitions. We need to edit our audio slightly, so all we do is just drag it back to here. That's all we're going to do, is just drag it back a little bit because we shortened our clip, our video content slightly. Let's go to File, Save Project, and now we've got transitions between our video clips. So let's click play and you'll see it transitions, it fades in and out between the two video clips. Now if you look on the tools over here, we've got, let's see, let's close the toolbox here, let's see, toolbox, video transitions. Right now it's set to cross dissolve, and you've got all these different types of dissolves here. So you've got like clockwise swipe, wipe, you've got split, you've got all these different ones that you can experiment with. Now to use them, well, let's just say we use clock wipe. So we just left click on this and drag and drop it onto the transition here. And if we click play now, it will change. You can see it's like this clockwise transition. But I quite just like the simple dissolve. You've got like a blur dissolve as well. Let's try that one out. Let's click play now. And it'll kind of do this blur dissolve. But I like simple dissolve. So I'm going to go back to the cross dissolve and drag and drop that here. So all of them will use cross dissolve now, because that's the default one that's being used. So now you can see they're all just sort of dissolve like this. That's what I like. So let's go to File, Save. I'm going to move to the beginning of the timeline. I'm going to click on Titles, and in Titles I'm going to use this Text Plus option. There's all these different titles that you can experiment with. I'll leave you to experiment with them, but I'm going to do a pretty simple title, and I'm going to do some keyframing on it as well. So let's drag and drop this into here. And now we've got this text called title, and over here, if you don't see this little box here, you need to click on the inspector. Sometimes you'll see it like this. You need to click on inspector here, and you can inspect this particular title, and we're going to call this new clip animal, or the title we're going to call it animal, and then planet. So I've got this text here, and we can select a different font, so we can experiment with all these different fonts. I think we'll use something, let's see, I've got all these different fonts I've installed on my computer. I'm going to find one that I quite like. What would be nice is as you roll over these fonts, or maybe next to each one, it could have had like some sort of example of what that font looks like. But if you know your fonts pretty well, then I guess you're okay. I just want to find something quite clean. So let's see what we can find here. We'll use this. No, actually, that's not very good, is it? Let's stick with something quite simple, like Serif Pro, yeah? Something nice and clean and simple. I think that would be okay. Actually, I quite like this font. So we're going to select this particular font, and as we scroll down the font options, we can change the size, we can change the tracking, so like how much space is in between each font. We can change the line gap as well here, right? So we want this to be a little bit closer like this, something like this. And we've got this write on option here as well, so we can write the text like this, we can type it out almost, right? So let's do a little animation sequence here. So I'm going to drag this towards the end of the clip here. So I'm dragging this title across so it finishes close to where the transition happens. Just dragging it across, that's all. We're going to move to the beginning of the timeline, and we're going to click on this little dot here. This inserts a keyframe. But before we do that, Well, we can do that now. We'll click on it and we'll drag this right handle all the way back to the beginning. And we're going to move across on the timeline. Let's move across to maybe around, let's say 3 seconds, right? 1, 2, 3, yeah, 3 seconds here. And then we'll click on the keyframe here again, and we're going to drag this handle all the way to the right hand side. So now that keyframe will work and it will type out this text like this, right? It could be any font, it doesn't have to be this font. You can even go back and change the font if you don't like that font. We can change it to something else and that transition will still work in the same way. But we just need to adjust maybe the size of it if we decide to change it, right? Let's try and find something that I like. Should have probably left it as it was. This one's quite cool, actually. I like this font. Okay. Okay, cool. So the next thing we want to do is we're on 3 seconds, right? So we're going to go back to the very beginning again, and we'll go to the, let's see, we'll go to shading, and inside shading we're going to click on the keyframe here for opacity. So we'll click on the keyframe here and we'll go to the 3rd second. That's where our little sort of animation ends. So we can use this to jog frames. So if you want to move like really small frames, use the jog wheel here like we did before. Let's go to File, Save, and we'll click on the keyframe here again as well for the opacity. So between the first frame and on frame 3 seconds, it's going to be the same opacity. Then we'll move across to the timeline to the end, and we're going to jog back like 1 frame. Or let's see, let's get this right. So 6:15 is the end frame, so we want to be on 6:14, 6:14, yeah, 1 frame just before, and then we'll set a keyframe here, and we'll set the opacity to 0. So now our text, well, let's play it and see what happens. It will sort of type out like this and then gradually fade out. That's kind of what I wanted. And let's go to File, Save, and pretty much everything else is done, right? But let's have a little bit of fun. So let's show you something in Fusion quickly. So let's click on this dog clip. This is the dog playing around on the sand. So we'll click on that particular clip, move the timeline to that particular clip, click on it, go to Fusion, and inside Fusion we can do some effects. So I'm going to do a basic one today, and we'll look at some more advanced stuff later. So I'm going to click on Tools here, and I'll go to Effects here, and I'll click on Raise here, Raise. So if we play the video clip, you'll see the sunlight in the background behind the dog, and the dog kind of moves in the sun, and you can see that in the background there, right? So let's go back to the first frame. We'll click here to go to the very first frame. We'll click on Raise, and Raise will be added in here. And now when we click play, you'll see these sun rays sort of coming out here, and we can change the power of these rays. We don't want it too much, right? It's a bit too much overkill there. So let's bring that down. And you can set the decay, how much decay it has. You can start playing around, experimenting the weight. So this is like the thickness almost, the exposure as well, how much exposure these rays have. You can really play around with the threshold, so how much of this clip is used, and you can sort of experiment and get, play around with the settings. There's tons and tons of things that you can do with this Fusion effects. It's really quite diverse. You can do particle effects, you can do a lot of different things. It works kind of like the node editor in Blender, similar kind of. There's quite a few different things in here, so we'll experiment with this a bit later. I just wanted to show you a basic usage of this Fusion editor, right? So let's go back to the editor here, and if we were to click play, let's just move back a little bit, and then we click play now. It might play a little bit slow in the editor here, or in the video player, because it's trying to do that effect in real time. But normally once it's played it through once, on the second play it'll be a lot smoother. It should be a little bit smoother. When we go to do our render, it should be perfectly fine. So what we'll do now, we've been through the media clip, the the media clip section here. We've been through cutting, editing, we looked at fusion briefly. Let's go to color. So in color here, you can click on, let's say, this squirrel, for example, this squirrel clip. You can move across the timeline here, down here. You can start playing around with the settings. So you can zoom in here, and we can sort of increase or decrease the colors in here. If it's a bit too oversaturated, you can play around with this. You can change the gamma. You can really experiment with the colors. It's all about color correction. Remember, this is pretty high-end video editing stuff, so I'm not going to claim to know everything about video editing. I'm basically a web designer, but I like to experiment with these tools because I do a lot of video work. You can see from my YouTube channel, and I use DaVinci Resolve and some other video editing software, and I like to learn things. That's kind of my goal, is to learn things and then to share that knowledge with you. So if you don't like what you've done, let's just say you go a bit overkill here, right, and you start coming out with some crazy purple squirrel, and you're thinking like, right, that's just not right, you can click on these little reset buttons here for each one of the options, and you can reset the clip back to its original. But I think we'll lift it a little bit and give it a little bit more gain here as well, something like this. So just a slight edit on that. You can click on each one and then color correct it as you see fit. You can even, you know, change, like, you can do quite creative things here as well. So if you're doing like a music video and you want to change the colors inside the video clip, and you want to make everything sort of like a blue sort of color, you can play around with it and start changing the colors. So something like a video for music clip will be a bit different, right? Obviously our line needs to stay pretty much its normal color. So I'm going to leave these clips pretty much as they are. I'm not going to really play around with these settings. I don't know them too well as well, so I don't want to tell you how to use something I don't know that well, but you can see how you can play around with these settings here. I will be experimenting with them a lot more, and maybe I'm going to go and do some of my own filming and pick some good scenarios where these tools can be used a bit more professionally, and then learn how to use them and then share that knowledge with you later. So that's color correcting. I'll leave you to experiment with that. Fairlight is about audio. So here you can see the waveform, and you can start playing around with audio. You can start really compositing many different clips. So in here you could have got an audio clip of a dog barking, and in that particular clip on the timeline you could have the dog sort of barking, that sort of sound effect, and overlay that on this audio clip as well. So again, I'll leave you to kind of experiment with this, but we did some basic editing of audio in the editor here. So let's go let's go over to this deliver, and deliver, this is really the last point of this tutorial. And over at the top here you can see there's different options to export into different tools. So you've got like Final Cut Pro, so if you're using Mac you might use that. You've got Premiere if you're using Adobe Premiere on your PC, or you've got Avid here as well, Pro Tools. You've got audio only exporting, so you've got different options in here. But for now, normally I would export in H.264, so that's kind of like good HD video editing or video compression. So the file name, let's call this Animal Planet V2, because it's like a version 2 I made here, version 2. We need to browse here, and we'll go to my desktop. We'll go into this folder, and we've got the file here. Let's click save. And here you've got different options to compress the audio into different file formats. So you can compress them into various audio formats. The video, we want to set it to MP4. I think that's a probably better file format, more compatible. And the resolution and the frame rate we'll leave as it is. 1920 by 1080 is perfectly fine. And once we've done all of that, you can experiment with a few of these other settings, but I normally just leave them as default. In advanced settings, there's a few things in here. Pretty much I'll leave all of this as default as well. You've got subtitle settings here as well. So I'll leave you to experiment with them, but the basic ones are to set the file name, set the location, set it to H.264 or YouTube if you want to upload to YouTube or Vimeo. I think these are like direct uploads. I'm going to leave it pretty much on this option here. Just decided to change my file name here, so let's just call that Animal Planet V2 again, and the video we'll set it back to MP4. Everything else will leave the same. Let's just browse here. It's going into the right directory. So if you click on these other ones, you're going to change these settings, so be a bit careful. You have to reset them again. Click Add to Render Queue, and now that you can see the videos over here ready to be rendered, and click normally I'll go to File, Save first, and then click Start Render. Now what I find is DaVinci Resolve render engine is very fast compared to some of the other video editing tools I use. Their video editing encoders are pretty slow, but this one seems to be very fast. You can see how quickly it's moving through this content, and it won't take very long to complete the edit, and then we'll just check out the video once it's done this exporting. So it's about 58% done already. To be fair, this was quite a short video clip. It was only like 40, well, just over a minute long, I believe, or probably less than that, maybe about 50 seconds. Let's see, 53 seconds and 29. You can see the in and outs here. So let's go to finally File, Save Project. Let's close this. Then on my desktop, we should have a new video clip in here called Animal Planet V2. Let's give that a quick play, see what it looks like, and then we're done with this tutorial. Okay, so that came out pretty well. I think that's all good. Probably if there's anything that I was going to fix in this video clip, I would have maybe faded the video clip at the beginning and maybe faded it to black at the end, but I think it actually looks okay. I don't think it's too bad, and you can see the ray light effect that we put in on this particular clip here using the Fusion editor, right? So that's it. We've gone from knowing pretty much nothing about DaVinci Resolve 16 to being able to complete a whole video edit, add some audio, cut all the video clips, even add some special effects as well, and then export the video and save that on our computer. And there's the file right there. It's quite a large file at 165 meg, so maybe that particular option isn't the best option for exporting, I don't know, but you know, it's a master video clip, so it's going to be at the best possible quality. And it's always better to upload things at the best possible quality when you're uploading to somewhere like YouTube, because YouTube will run a lot of compression and stuff on the clip afterwards anyway. Okay, so let's close this. That's the end of this tutorial. So I hope you enjoyed this DaVinci Resolve 16 beginners tutorial. I'll be doing some more videos on this software, looking at some more advanced options, and as I learn more things, I want to share that knowledge with you as well. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and write a little comment. If you make a video clip and you upload that to YouTube, then put that video in the comment section on YouTube and I'll check it out as well. Okay, that's the end of this tutorial, and I look forward to seeing you on the next DCP web tutorial.